This is the World Satsanga on the 6th of December 2014. And so we've got Joe, Chris, Yvonne, John, Terry, Mathias, Adriana and Marita. I'm expecting Nuala and Marnie to drop in sort of a midpoint. And on the last real-time Satsanga that I did, I talked about how the energies that are projected from the true energetic self, which we sometimes call the Godhead or the Oversoul or the higher self, move into the physical form and are distributed. And very quickly they come in through the hara line, and they can come in through either the crown chakra or the medulla oblongata, which is at the point at the back of the skull where the spine meets the skull. There's an energy centre there, which is just basically for adding energy in from our higher selves. And that energy comes in through the hara line and settles in at the Tantien, which is it's sort of like three inches inside of the stomach from around the navel area, and then it distributes itself out from there up in towards the different chakras, the major, minor and mini chakras around the human form, and allows the human form to be animated on not just the gross physical but also the spiritual physical levels. And also there's another area called the soul seat, according to the Barbara Brennan information, which is just behind the solar plexus or the area where the heart chakra is. And that's basically the essence of self. That's the personality. That's the part of us that is created as a result of us being incarnate. And so the soul seat is where really we as energetic beings, or part of, or should I say that part or that aspect that's projected into the physical form, the aspects being a smaller part of the true energetic self, what we now call the true, and that part that comes into the physical form, the aspect is what we call the soul. That's where it resides, basically. That's the essence of self. If you like, that's the personality that grows. And also, you can potentially, if you wanted to, call it the ego, because the ego is that temporary personality that's created as a result of the soul, or an aspect of the true energetic self, again sometimes called the Godhead or the higher self or the Oversoul, being projected out from itself into the physical form to experience low frequency existence, and as a result of that accelerate its own evolutionary content and an evolutionary progression. And so it sits there. But when the physical body demises, things happen in reverse, basically. The energies we draw from all of the energetic nervous system, if you think of the nervous system from the physical perspective, is all over the body, making our fingers work, our tactile senses work, the muscles work, the body move around, the eyes look, the brain work, the heart work, the liver work. All of these major organs, they're all controlled by this nervous system, which from a physical perspective is controlled by the brain. But the brain is just a small part of what we are in terms of the energetic part, energetic system. But when the physical body demises, everything starts to have to return back to the true energetic self, and so it follows this backward route back into the higher self, the Godhead or the Oversoul. And so what happens is the soul seat, the essence of personality, that ego, starts to disseminate back into the Tantien, and we start to lose this part of our personality as such. We don't lose the memory sets, we don't lose the essence of what the personality is, but the personality as a function of being incarnate starts to dissolve. And so the energy starts to come back in through the Tantien, where basically the distribution point of all the energies, and move back into the hara line. Now the hara line is, if you think of the hara line as being like a hose pipe, a small tube, which is an energy conduit that is from the physical self that's the gross physical, and the spiritual physical, which is those 4 frequencies above the 3 associated with the human form, and then later the 3 above that, which are purely energetic. The energies that they coalesce at the 10-10, and they start to move back into this hara line, and move back up this small, shall I say, energetic tube, the hara itself, back out of the physical, moving out of the gross physical energies. They move back out of the spiritual physical. That's frequency levels 4, 5, 6, and 7. For those of you who've done the Traversing Frequencies workshops. And they then go out to the last 3 energy sets, which is the step down function that allows the higher self, the Godhead or the true energetic self, to slowly reduce its frequencies and allow that part of itself to still function whilst it's projected into lower frequencies associated with the human form, and of course the physical universe, which are the lowest frequencies associated with the multiverse in general. And so that moves, the energies move back up this tube, and in some instances, specifically with those who've had recorded near-death experiences, we get the recorded memories of individuals who feel like they've gone through a tube, or they've gone through a tunnel, and they come out of this tunnel into the light. And basically, what that is the consciousness, or should I say, the sentience associated with the energies that have been projected into the physical, moving back through that temporary conduit called the hara line, back into the true energetic self, or the higher self, or the Godhead, or the Oversoul, depending upon which particular piece of nomenclature you want to use. They all mean the same thing, and so it goes back into that. And then from there, the aspect itself doesn't reintegrate instantaneously. There has to be a level of understanding of what is achieved in an isolated case. And the detail behind that is something I've been writing on now in my latest book, The End Dialogues. But I shall very, very quickly summarise what happens. In effect, there is of course, we have our guides and helpers, and they are working with us to ensure that we, as an incarnate being, experience what we need to experience in the most efficient way possible, and therefore gain that evolutionary content in as efficient way as possible. And so the aspect itself of the soul goes through almost like a debriefing condition, where the true energetic self and the guide and the helpers and the aspect get together to understand how things went. And there's much. I mean, this is a very summarised version, but there's a lot of detail behind this in the text I've been recently writing. But in effect, it's not just the soul that goes through like a life review. It's the guide and the helpers. They also go through this review as well. And it's not just the case of looking at the life review in terms of the linear existence that we experience here on Earth, but it also includes all those fractalised moments of existence that are created by event space, those localised parallel universe conditions that we also experience. And so it takes a long time to go through this life review to understand all of the different things that we could have experienced or should have experienced or did experience based upon various different decision processes that we made or didn't make, as the case may be, whilst being in this incarnate state. And so we have to go through that. And at the same time, or should I say, what appears to be the same time, because this is all dealt with in another portion of event space, so it's all done in a parallel condition, outside of the normal sort of mainline run of things. The soul itself has to start to disassociate itself from being incarnate, because one of the things that does happen is it starts to think of itself as being the human form, and so when it recognises that it survived the demise process of the human form, it starts to realise, it starts to think of itself in terms of, you know, I'm still a human form, even though I am now no longer part of that physical human form. But it still starts to paint a picture around itself of an environment that is similar to Earth, and it also, all those individual entities that it recognises from their energetic signature, it starts to paint a form around them that is similar to the forms that it would be expected to see on Earth. And so until it really starts to realise what it is and where it's existing and what it's done, it creates this Earth-like environment around itself. Now, clearly, this is just for those individuals who've come onto Earth. Those who've gone into different conditions within the physical universe would paint a different environment around themselves with a different form factor, which wouldn't be particularly humanoid. It might be something completely different, because it's their way of coming out of the incarnate condition, and they slowly start to recognise that actually the environment they're in is false, and the form that they're given themselves, and they paint around those other individuals that they experience, is also false as well. And so eventually we start to get the pure energetic condition of the aspect within its environment, within the condition of being separate from the true energetic self still, but being out of the physical function of being incarnate. There's lots and lots and lots more information surrounding this, and it would take a long time to go through. But in essence, the whole bit about what we've got in recent texts about how we experience existence post-demise of the physical form is based upon those individuals who've been contacted through mediums, through hypnosis, through near-death experiences, through astral travelling, who haven't gone past the recognition of self as being something other than a human form which is disincarnate. And so most of what we've got from a text-based condition or recorded condition is based upon the human condition. And I think there's a few authors now, or a few people that have experienced the true condition, are starting to write about what happens in the true condition, and the sort of omnipresent feeling that we have about ourselves when we start to go back into the purely energetic. And there's some really good text out there. There's one book called Backwards, which is a really good example actually of what people experience. So if you've got the chance to buy that book, it's very good. I've not actually read the book myself. I've only listened to a couple of the ladies, and I can't remember the name of the author now. But look, do go to Amazon and just put Backwards in there. You'll see the book there. But I've only listened to one of her YouTube videos, and it's pretty consistent with the information I've picked up. So it's good to listen. It's good to listen to that, and you'll start to understand as when we do demise from the physical form, we do start to get a completely different perspective eventually. And the perspective that this lady is talking about is based upon somebody who is recognising that they aren't human anymore. They're back to their energetic state, and as a result of that, they're starting to disassociate themselves from being the human state, and they're starting to understand the functionality that they have as a result of being disincarnate, which is excellent. Okay, well, that's a very summarised, very quickly summarised view on the process that we go through as a result of the demise of the physical form, and how the energies move out of the physical form, back up the Hara line, and go into this temporarily separate state that exists before the aspect then starts to go back into communion with the higher self, or the true energetic self, or the Godhead. And there's two forms of this. There's total communion, where the energies move back in and they become like basically like a drop of water in the ocean. So initially you have these massive memory sets of things that you've experienced before, and then you start to become dissolved in the greater memory set of everything that is the higher self. And there's partial communion, where you maintain your sentience and your individuality whilst you're also in a level of communion or integration with the true energetic self as well. And those entities who want to have full communion with the higher self do so, and those entities or those aspects who actually tend to be specialised in certain experiences and certain functions and certain abilities tend to stay as individualised sentience within their true energetic self, and are usually called upon to do different incarnations at later dates because they can experience and work upon those incarnations and the environments they find themselves in, and the work they have to do in a more efficient way, rather than being in an absolute cold way. Okie doke. Right. Any questions on that before I move on to some of the questions that Marnie and Ula and Joe have presented to us? Don't forget your microphone's on mute, so if you are talking, your mic's on mute, can't hear you. Okay, that's fine. So let's have a look at these questions from Marnie then. I'm going to, this is quite a convoluted, well, they're quite attached to each of these questions are, so I'm just going to send them to you, if I can. Getting used to where things are in this new version of Skype.
Hi.
Hi Marita.
Yeah, Magic has got a question. He typed it in. He hasn't got a microphone, so I thought I'd chip in and let you know,
okay.
just in case you haven't seen it before you move on.
Right, just spotted it. Thank you very much. Yes, this
Okay,
Guy, what would be the turning point of energy to start moving out of the body, other than the body has died, or does this process happen before it actually dies? Ooh. Clearly, there are times when the energetic side of us does start to move out before the body actually dies. And a classic example of that is Alzheimer's disease or dementia, where we start to lose memory sets or we start to lose cognition of what's around us. And that's because there are smaller and smaller parts of what we truly are existing within the human form. And so, in general, there are, shall I say, most individuals who are incarnate leave the body after it's demised, but there are those who elect to leave slowly. And that's where we get the, like Alzheimer's, the function of Alzheimer's disease coming in, or dementia, specifically dementia, I think. When the energies that animate the vehicle, certainly from the cognitive sense or the sentience aspect of it, start to leave early. And as a result of that, the body starts to appear, and the sentience or the intelligence surrounding the body starts to appear to be, shall we say, not operating properly. As well, people have no memory set. They start to work on the memories that are very old rather than localized temporally, and they start to really get frustrated with themselves, because actually the amount of sentience that's within the body is limited. And so when they start to work with themselves, they get confused a lot. And because the sentience is reduced, the intelligence is also reduced, and the consciousness is also reduced as well as a result of that. So really, it tends to be that we tend to leave, in general, we tend to leave in the body's demise, but there are instances such as the dementia-based illnesses where we elect to leave slowly rather than quickly. I think that might answer Matches's question there, with a bit of luck. Okay. Yes, Matches just said thanks, brilliant. He's just told me he doesn't have a microphone today, he's just listening in, so he's sending in stuff via the SMS message. Good. Right, the first question from Marnie is, she said, I have been thinking about this topic, the demise of the human form in the context of how this might influence the process of reintegrating with the true energetic self. In death, many are leaving a human body that is diseased, cancerous in nature. My understanding of cancerous growth is that this reflects blockages in the physical plane, but these have origins in higher planes. Cures for cancers are thus complex, impossible in current Western-centric approaches, since they require removing the block and then limiting and/or reversing the damage done by the unchecked growth. How are these blocks in death released, and do they pose limitations on the reintegration with the test? With the test being the true energetic self. There's two reasons for cancers. One is the energetic disharmony between the form factor of the humanoid body, which is all of the different frequency sets associated with it. The 3 gross physical, the 4 spiritual physical, and the 3 purely energetic. And when we start to go down various different thought processes, that are outside of our life plan, we start to create disharmonious conditions. And if we leave them long enough, we can get various different types of physical dysfunction as a result of those energetic disharmonies. The cancers being one of them, because cancers are a case of the energetic templates associated with the spiritual physical aspect of what we are being affected by the thought processes of the incarnate aspect or soul, and those templates are in variation to what they should be, and they affect change upon the physical at the DNA level, hence the cancers. Now the thing is that the cancer can be a result of that, a disharmonious condition, but also it can be one of our, shall I say, termination junctures, because we do have up between 3 and 5 termination junctures where we can leave the human form before the end of the planned life. It's almost like having a number of different exits off a motorway. They all go to the same place, but we can choose to leave early if we want to, without accruing karma. But some of these are early, if we decide to go earlier, and some of these can be later. And if we decide on the energetic level, that's not a conscious decision of the incarnate form, by the way. That's the aspect deciding on the energetic level that it no longer needs to be here. It can decide to use one of these diseases to affect the demise of the human form, so it can remove itself from its incarnate state at one of these termination junctures. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be a cancer to do that. It can be a sudden heart attack, it can be an aneurysm in the head, strokes, all these different things, sudden adult death syndrome. All of these things can be used to allow the soul, the aspects that's projected from the higher self or true energetic self, to leave the human vehicle, either the planned end of life or end of incarnation, or at any one of these early termination junctures beforehand. And so in these instances, that disease cannot and will not be cured. So if somebody's got one of these illnesses and they are energetically using it as a method of becoming disincarnate, there is no level of healing will bring them round. It's a case of that's the way they're going to go, and any healing or any surgery or chemotherapy will not affect them at all. But in terms of Marnie's question here, if blockage is there and it's caused the human body to demise, then actually there will need to be a part of the life review that looks at why those blockages happened. And so it's not just a case of we disincarnate and we review the life and we decide to leave the human form by accident or illness or age or whatever. We have to understand what could have caused this issue. So in the term of the disharmonious condition, where a blockage was there, that blockage would need to be analysed by the aspect or the soul, the higher self, which is the true energetic self, the Godhead or the Oversoul, and the guide and helpers to understand what's happened there and how they could, and how next time they can get into a position where they don't, where the soul doesn't go into a process of disharmonious condition that can cause a particular cancer or a particular illness that can cause an early demise of the human form. And so they're all done by this life review process, and the function afterwards of understanding what went right, what went wrong on the various different event spaces, the different fractalized, localized, parallel conditions that happened, and how maybe one parallel condition sorted it out, whereas another one didn't, for instance. And so it's all looked at in the past. There is also a place or a period of, shall I say, time after the demise of the human form, where the aspect itself goes through a cleansing process, which is to do with, it's all to do with personal review or individual review of the soul with the test, and a cleansing process to remove any disharmonious energies, so that if he wants to reintegrate with the test, it's not bringing any disharmony with it. Okay. Mauritius has said, does this apply to animals, pets as well? Oh, very human-centric, isn't this? In terms of pets and animals, they would go through a similar thing, but not in the same level, so to speak. Not in the same, not to the same level of quality of review, because they're a different type of entity. They're not the same genre as we are energetically. They're a different genre, and so they would go through a different type of review, not as in depth as we do. Okay. Okay, so Mauritius just said, would animals go through the same thing to choose an early exit? I've got to ask the question, hang on. The answer is yes, but they're not as in control as what we would be, which is an interesting comment. Basically, they are, their genre of energy is not as sentient as ours, and so they can enter into various different things from an incarnate perspective, but they don't have the same level of control. So it's a little bit like they're a balloon in the wind. They're a balloon filled full of helium, and they're blown about by the wind to some extent. And their learning process is based upon how they work with us as higher energetic forms, or how they may work with other energetic forms in a different part of the physical universe. Okay, so they're not as in control as what we are. They're not able to affect their environments anywhere near as accurate as what we are. Next one is, are there any accidental deaths, or are they always planned? Ooh, there are accidental things, specifically if what was expected to happen in a certain event space, I'm looking for the word now. If we had a series of event spaces that were supposed to be linked up together to create a certain level of progression, and another event space, for whatever reason, another event space intervenes and something happens, there can be accidents. But in general, they're always planned. And that includes getting shot or getting, being in a motor car accident or a plane crash or in an accident at sea. They're generally planned, but in real terms, it's very rare that there are accidents where things have happened outside of the plan. It happens if there's an unforeseen, or should I say, an event space intervening with the mainstream event space that we're experiencing, and the percentage of chance of that affecting us was so low it was negated or ignored. But in the instance of this particular piece of experience, that low percentage of interaction happened, and therefore then it becomes classified as an accident. And then others just saying again, is it true that the soul leaves exactly when it wants to, when it doesn't have anything else to do? The answer to that is yes, apart from in the accident condition. Also, the answer is yes, apart from when it's in the state of for instance, in suicide cases. That's something again. That's classified as not specifically an accident, but it's outside of the life plan. and there's not many, shall I say, times when suicide is acceptable because of the immense amount of downstream effect it has. Because if you imagine that we communicate with lots of individuals over our lifetime, and then those individuals interact with other individuals who interact with other individuals. And so if we leave the planet too early through personally demising the human form early, then we affect all of these downstream things and all of the potential evolutionary content that's associated with it. And so it's really quite a thing to do if you commit suicide. It's difficult because the amount of downstream work that's there. There are extremely rare instances where it's acceptable, but then it has to be planned into it, and that happens behind the scenes. So, for instance, if an aspect or a soul, because of its own high frequency condition, for instance, can't possibly stay here any longer, it's finding it difficult, and there's no natural ways of going. For instance, there isn't a localised termination juncture. There isn't an accident that can be used, or there isn't an illness that can be used because the body's too healthy. Then there has to be work done behind the scenes to ensure that there isn't anything downstream that's going to be left behind as a result of that early termination. And so there's lots of work happens in the background in those conditions. They are extremely rare. I've only ever known of two actually. And one of those was told to me by Dolores Cannon 2 years ago. Okay, let's have a look at this other question by Marnie. She's another series of questions. Consider a case of a person. Let me just send this to you all. So you can see it. Right. Consider a case of a person that's in the process of passing, leaving their physical form. How are the connections to the closest such person heightened, particularly in the window leading up to and surrounding the time of passing? What role is the test in this? Well, actually, the true entity itself doesn't do an awful lot. Actually, what my understanding is, it's all to do with the aspect removing itself or disengaging itself as a function of the test, the true entity itself, from the incarnation. But I'm not really. I need to look at this again. It says, how are the connections to those closest to such person heightened? So what she's saying is, okay, and she's got an example here. I've experienced this phenomenon on 2 occasions as an observer, being the only person with my grandmother when she died, and then my best friend, and I holding my mum's hands when she died. In both events, in the 30 minutes before and right about the time of the passing, the people that were closest to the women began to try to make contact with them, or through me as caregiver to inquire about them. Some drove 3 hours and showed up moments after passing. How is this bond to others, which I presume is through the love particle, etc., strengthened or activated in these final moments of occupation in the human form? Is this achieved through the integration with tests? What happens is that as we start to depart from the human form, the aspect that is animating the human form starts to get access to higher functionalities. Because as it starts to move up the higher line, it moves up the frequencies naturally. And as it moves up the frequencies, it gets access to high frequency functionality, and as a result of that, it can, if it decides to do so, communicate with those others who it's had an association with in the incarnate sense. Basically, just to give them a message to say, actually, the physical form's died, but that which is me is still okay, and I'm returning back to my own higher self, or my Godhead, or my true energetic self, or oversoul. And so it's basically to help others with their function of the demise process, to help them move through their own personal bereavement process. It's really the case of these individuals, as they're leaving the human form, deciding to help others around them who are not aware of the greater reality or the spiritual reality, to move on as fast as possible, to not feel that the human form is all there is, and to help them experience a heightened state of beingness as a result of this. And so really it's a case of, it is the aspect moving through the higher frequencies, or to say moving through the frequencies that are higher than the gross physical, getting extra functionality, and then I would guess energetically, telepathically communicating with them, just to say, yeah, I'm okay, by the way. And sometimes you get other signs as well. When I had a sign with Demise, I had an electronic bottle opener which she bought me as a joke back in 2005, and it had a Christmas tune, electronic Christmas tune on it, and that played itself half an hour. No, hang on. It played itself 7 hours after the physical form died, and then during the morning of the day she demised, it played itself out 5 or 6 times. And you normally can't activate this thing without a metal-to-metal contact. So they do it to help us while we're still here, to not go down this difficult emotional route. Richard just said, my aunt contacted me when she was physically passing telepathically in hospital. I woke up as I was fast asleep, and when she called my name, I was 300 kilometres away. Yeah. Distance is not a problem. Distance is a physical thing. We don't understand in real terms that distance means nothing at all. Specifically when we're communicating. When we're used to communicating with our higher selves or with other individuals who are purely energetic, communicating universes away is not an issue. Communicating across the universes and different environments within the universe is instantaneous. There's no problem with that. So 300 kilometres is looking at it from some of the information I've received in the past. It's not uncommon to have people in Australia, for instance, communicating with a relative in England or the States. It's a similar sort of thing. The distance isn't an issue. It's helping them. It's helping the people who are still incarnate and therefore still not able to communicate with their true energetic selves or have the higher functionality associated with higher frequency existence to move on after the physical form is gone. And others just asked another question: is the life review done at the frequency level of our tests, not at the lower levels? Correct. It's done at levels that are within the test. Done at levels that the test exists within, not where the aspect was as an incarnate being. Yeah. So if the true energetic self existed, for instance, in frequency level 108, that's where the life review will be going to, because that's the natural state of the energy that is our higher self. Okay. And Richard just said, there's a father made an object move a week after he died when I asked him or challenged him the fact that his energy could not have been gone. And you were in Hong Kong at the time, yeah. Yes, there's plenty of things that can be done. Actually, moving objects is very hard work for them. it uses a lot of energy, an awful lot of energy, because they're having to shift physical stuff, which is very thick energy, very low frequency, and they're working on a higher frequency level. It's very difficult to move or even manifest by using what used to call ectoplasm, a physical form to say, look, I'm okay. It's just my physical body that's died. Right, I think this is the final question from Marnie, and then there's a question from Ulla and a question from Joe. And Marnie says, is there a way we can harness the power of how this connection of death of human form is heightened so that we can connect in deeper ways to others in a more sustained manner during our lifetimes? Or will this type of connectivity to others be simply unbearable, stroke impossible to maintain in a current world that is filled with a larger proportion of suffering in the minds of fellow men? Let me just ask the question. Okay, what I'm getting is basically it's not something we can harness, it's something we must work on. And when we meditate and when we connect with our higher selves, whether we do energy healing, whether we do my traversing frequencies workshops, whether we do anything that's basically higher frequency or a higher functionality that is not specifically attributed to being incarnate, we attract higher frequency conditions, and therefore we have higher frequency functionality as a result of that. So we can, in effect, harness this power outside of the need of being close to somebody who is in the process of demise of the physical form, by simply continuing to associate ourselves with higher frequency behaviour patterns, thought processes, actions, and functions whilst we're here. And then we will start to experience more of that which is out and around where we are right now. For those of you who are naturally working on being of service, you will start to realise that there are, shall I say, higher levels of consciousness that we achieve on a regular basis, and as a result of that we start to understand and we start to perceive different things. We get more, our clairaudience increases, our clairvoyance increases, our clairsentience increases, so spiritual seeing, spiritual hearing, spiritual knowing increases, and so our connectivity to the higher frequencies associated with the multiverse, and specifically where we are right now as incarnate beings, the higher frequencies associated with the physical form, the physical universe, gets better as well. And so really, if we were to work on ourselves through meditating and being of service, we wouldn't specifically need to have this connection of the depth of the human form and an aspect trying to communicate with us to be able to experience the levels of connectivity that we would get as a result of it. Okay, I think that hopefully answers that question for people. And let's have a quick look at this other question from further. Right, now this is based upon I think this is a question that's come from my first book, The History of God, I think, I can gather. And I think the one from Joe's as well. And others said, please explain to us again what you meant by these terms, essence of self versus total essence of separation. Well, the essence of self is, there's two versions of the essence of self. There's the essence of self that's created through the separation of a small part of energy and its sentience, or should I say a small part of sentience and its associated energy from the higher self, or the true energetic self, and its projection into a form that will allow it to exist on a lower frequency. So the essence of self is the knowingness of what we are as an individual. If we go beyond that essence of self, we start to know that we are more than what we are as a physical being. That's an extended version of essence of self. It's like being self-realised or self-aware. The essence of separation, is again, there's two parts of it. The essence of separation is the energies and the sentience associated with those energies from the higher self, or true energetic self, that are projected into the physical. That is separate. Okay? But in terms of the essence of separation, it's a case of when we are separate from the human form, we're also separate from the test, the true energetic self. We are, well, the aspect of the soul is an individualized unit, and so we feel individualized but separately together, and so we feel this essence of separation. And the essence of separation for us as incarnate beings would really be the soul seat, if you want to call it that, the personality that's created, the ego that's created as a result of being incarnate. The essence of self is also associated with that. The essence of separation is this understanding of what we are. So it's the essence of self is the recognition of the self as an individual. It's almost like having a consciousness of I think, therefore I am, for instance. And the essence of separation is the recognition of the fact that we are separate from some entity or some energy which is much bigger than ourselves. It's a difficult thing to get one's head around, to be honest, in terms of what it really is. But in real terms, they are both aligned to the ability to distinguish between what we are energetically and what we are when we incarnate, and what we're part of energetically. And so therefore we have the essence of self as being, I am an aspect of my higher self, or my true energetic self, or my Godhead, incarnate into a human form. And the essence of separation is that actually I am an individualized unit of my higher self, or my true energetic self, my Godhead, or my oversoul. And so it's recognition that that's what we are. And actually, if you take it further up, the true energetic self, or the Godhead, or the higher self, or the oversoul, is also in essence of self, an essence of separation, because it is an individualized unit of source. And if you take it higher up, you get the same thing with the source, because that is in fact an individualized unit of origin, And so we are the same thing, essence of self versus essence of separation, as we come down the steps between origin to source entity to true energetic self to aspect, and ultimately aspect to shard, if you're having a sub-incarnation from that soul. Okay. Now then, let's have a look at Joe's question. Okay. Which is a good question as well, so. Okay. I think I didn't. Apologies, I noticed I didn't send that that question. Okay. Right. This is from Joe. He says, "Please explain to us again what you mean by these terms." Sorry. Okay. So again, from page 48 of the History of God, we are now at the point where we have almost had the critical mass necessary to allow us to raise the frequency of the Earth back up to the levels that it should be. What does almost mean? Is this within a few years, decades, our lifetime, or just hundreds of years from now? I know what I mean and then Joe goes on to explain, but he knows what he means when he says almost, so I'm wondering what the word almost means in this context. Actually, I looked at that question and I thought it's an excellent question, because that information is now probably 5 years old, or older actually. And I've decided that I was going to ask the question real time, right now in this Satsanga, rather than get the information beforehand. In fact, all these questions, I try to do them on the spot, rather than, although I read them, I don't look for the answers instantaneously. I like to get the answers channeling through me, as it were, rather than getting the information and then preconceiving, and then later on adding filters to it. So what you're getting is the raw information coming through. Let's have a look at... Well, there's two parts to this answer. One is the Earth. One is the Earth exists in a pan-frequential condition, and what that means is the Earth exists in all the frequencies associated with the physical universe concurrently, or all at the same time. And so what that means is that the Earth is already there. But from our perspective, what it means is that as an incarnate vehicle that we're using, when will we have the critical mass to be able to experience the other parts of the Earth that are in existence on these other higher frequencies? Because all we're doing right now is experiencing the Earth on the first three frequency levels, the gross physical, and some of us are experiencing bits and pieces on the fourth frequency level, and others above. And so what I picked up when I first read it was that actually we're already there. We've got this critical mass, and the image I'm getting right now is we're a little bit like a balloon that's just very slowly starting to lift the basket off the Earth. It's got enough hot air inside it to just lift that basket off the Earth. So we've got the critical mass, so to speak. And you can, and the proof is in the pudding, because if we all look around ourselves and we start to realise that there's more and more people becoming aware and awake, people are having spontaneous awakenings, people who were previously not interested in spiritual work are starting to become interested in spiritual work. They want to be hit, they want to go to do healings, they want to readings, they want to know more about themselves, they're asking questions about themselves and their environment. And so the fact that people are doing this, who would not specifically have done it before, is proof that we are starting to move upwards and this critical mass is there. Now then, moving on a little bit further forwards, the question would be, well, when will all of us on the planet start to experience this level of investigation of self, want to know more about the environment, and we've got to start to be experiencing higher frequency functionality, things like more clairaudience, clairsentience. Okay. Yeah, Joe said the words are garbled. I think maybe Skype might be struggling a bit at the moment. Okay, it's all recorded anyway, so if there's anything that is not understandable, it's on the recording, and I'll slow down a bit as well. That might help. So basically, what it means is that we are moving up already. We are at this critical mass, and we are getting to the stage where there are going to be those individuals who are definitely, thinking that they are the physical form, are going to start realising that they're more than the physical form. And so I've picked up that everybody on the planet will be at a level higher than they are now within the next 50 or 60 years, which is outside of my lifetime and outside of most of our lifetimes. But that's not saying that those individuals who are already experiencing high levels of functionality, of ability, of getting regular clairsentience or clairaudience or clairvoyance, are going to be further up the frequential tree than those. And so it's happening now as we speak, and it can only accelerate. And what I'm picking up is that once we've gone past this point where everybody is starting to recognise that they are great, that they're much bigger than their physical form, there's much more to them than their physical form is, then the growth is going to be exponential, and we're going to start to very, very quickly get to the point where people who are incarnating will be incarnating in the 5th and 6th and 7th frequencies and those above, whilst being on Earth. And we'll be starting to work with the content that's on the Earth that we don't see right now, or can't perceive right now, because it's at a higher frequency and we're existing on a lower frequency as an incarnate being. Okay, so that hopefully that answers that question for you, Joe. Apologies for the garbledness if it's the system struggling. And Chris has just asked. He says, "Hi, Guy. When I write a song, does the source channel through, or do I wait until the source is ready, or is it natural for me?" Think of it in terms of we aren't able to create anything as a human being. Everything we do, it comes through our higher self, which is connected to source. And so anything the creative that happens is actually coming through from the higher self or the true energetic self, and is being manifest in the physical through your human form. And so you could argue that in that instance, you don't write the song, the source writes it. Passes it on to your true energetic self, and then that comes down to the aspect that's been projected into the physical. Okay. Right. Well, I think we've got all those questions answered now. So we've had the hour, but what I want to do now is, if it's possible for all of us to enter into meditation, because I'm very aware that there's a lot of stuff happening in what we call the ISIS areas now, Syria, the Middle East, basically. And I feel that it would be good for us to work on increasing the frequencies there. So if you're all happy with that, I'm going to just lead a meditation to increase the frequency of that area, so that they can start to realise that what they're doing is actually a little bit not high frequency. Yeah, John's saying it's a little bit garbled. I think it's the bandwidth, John. So we'll have to. I'll speak slowly then, in that case. So we're going to do this meditation now then, to increase the frequency of the Middle Eastern areas, and within this context, we shall start to reduce the conflicts by increasing their frequencies, because they'll start to see that the conflict is futile. Okay? Okay. And okay, the sound's going from bad to worse. If it's difficult to listen to, then I apologise for the system being what it is, and it will be a good, clear recording when I pass it over by email or via the website later on. Okay, so we'll just have to do what we can. Maybe feed the cats. Yes, the cats are growling at me. They've actually had their food. It's just they're the ones having a bit of a tiff with the other one. Okay. So let's sit in our chairs in the way that we should be doing is meditating, which is the backs sitting with our feet flat on the ground and the small of our back in the right angle aspect of the chair, and the back straight, and the palms of our hands placed uppermost on our thighs, with the thighs meet the lower body. And our eyes closed, and our closed eyes focused upon the area of the third eye, which is in between the two eyebrows and above the bridge of the nose. And I want you to just visualize, or use your mentally spoken word if you have trouble visualizing, that we suddenly appear in a white corridor. And we're at the end of this white corridor, and at the other end of the white corridor there's a door. There are no other doors on the left hand or right hand wall. And so let's walk down this corridor, past these left hand and right hand walls that don't have any doors at all, and we get to this door at the end of the corridor, a single door. And when we get there, we open the door and walk inside. And when we walk inside, we see three chairs. So we turn around and close the door behind us. And in the three chairs, you will see that I'm sitting in the centre chair, and there's a spare chair on the right hand side of me, and there's a spare chair on the left hand side of me. So I want you to sit on either the left hand chair or the right hand chair. So your right hand will take my left hand, or your left hand will take my right hand. Okay. And then I want you to visualize that everybody else is in the room. So we've got Joe, we've got Chris, we've got Mo, we've got Jeremy, we've got Adriana, we've got Marita, we've got John, we've got Matias, we've got Yvonne, we've got Ula, and we've got Terry. And so from your perspective, your visual perspective, you see all of these people in a circle around us. Including myself, there's 12 people. So we're all in a circle with somebody else's right hand holding somebody else's left hand, or somebody else's left hand holding somebody else's right hand. And so we form a circle. And within this circle we have a synergetic effect. Because there's 12 of us in total, the effect we will have is 12 times 12. So it's 12 to the power of 12. Well, 12 squared basically, so it's 12 times 12. So it's like we've got 144 people with us. Now in this room, this white room, where we're all in a circle, this room is a vehicle that we can use. We can lift it away from where we think it is. It can be in wherever you're sitting now, in your homes of residence by your computer. Okay. This white corridor and this room being an extension of your particular location. But the room itself is a vehicle. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make this vehicle move up. Think of it like a lift, a white lift, with white walls, a white ceiling and a white floor. So we're all holding each other's hands, creating this synergetic effect. And this room lifts up from the building it's in, and it goes up and up. And in between our circle, we start to see through the circle, through the floor, to what's below us. And so we start to see this portal effect appearing in between us all. And so we can see down below, through the floor, to what's below the floor, through this space, this circular space that's in the middle of all of us. And so we can start to see as this room moves upwards, we see the house that the room was in, and the room goes higher, and we see the suburb that the house was in, and the room goes higher, and we see the city that the suburb was in, and the room goes higher, and we see the country that the city was in, and the room goes higher still, and we see the landmass, or the continent that this city was in, the country that the city was in. We go even higher, we find ourselves actually in orbit around the Earth. And we can change our location, we can move our orbit, and so we move to the right of where we are. And we keep moving right until we move across the area that is towards Europe, that's Western Europe. And we continue towards the right or the east, we go to Eastern Europe. We continue further towards the east or the right, and we start to see all the Middle Eastern countries, Israel, Syria, and all those countries that are all in conflict at the moment. And so in the circle that we've created, we look down through this circle, which is going down beneath the floor of this room, which is being our transportation, our lift, if you want to call it that. We see all of the countries in the Middle East all together. All of these countries that are in conflict with each other are all together on the same landmass. And so whilst we can see them all together from this higher vantage point of being in orbit, we can then feed to them higher frequency energy, which will help them to see that what the actions that they're having, the thought processes they're having, the behaviour patterns that they're having, is actually futile. It's actually not helping anything. It's actually dragging them down the frequencies. It's actually creating karma for them. And so what we can do to help them is project energy down from source to that landmass. So that landmass we bring in, rather than being an vantage point from being in orbit, we actually bring this landmass up into our room. The whole area, the houses, the buildings, the cities, the population, comes up into our building, our room, into the centre of our circle of people within this meditation. And so now we can increase their frequencies by pulling energy from the source through our crown chakras, bringing it down through our hara line so it goes past the plexus of where the spiritual or third eyes join the hara line. Further on down to the plexus of where the fifth or throat chakra joins the hara line, and then feeds out through the junction of where the heart chakra is on the hara line, and moves out through the heart chakra and irradiates the landmass that's in the centre of our group of people who are all holding each other's hand. And so we act as a channel. Each one of us acts as a channel, pulling in high frequency source energy through our crown chakras, pushing it through our hara line and out through our heart chakras, irradiating the landmass that contains all of these ISIS countries, all of these countries in the Middle East that are in conflict with each other, increasing their frequencies, allowing them to see the bigger picture rather than the very limited gross physical picture. And so as energy comes in through us, this energy from source is a mixture of white and silver and golden. It rotates and pulsates and irradiates, reflects little stars inside it of, again, white and golden and silver energy. Coming down through our crown chakra, down through the hara line, past the junction of the third eye chakras, past the junction of the throat chakras, and turning a right angle turn through the front aspect of the heart chakra. The location of the heart chakra is at the centre of the front of the chest where the sternum is. And that energy goes straight from our heart chakra and irradiates this landmass that is these Middle Eastern countries, the ISIS countries, increasing their frequency. And so, if when we picked up this landmass and brought it into the centre of us, it appeared to be a dark landmass, a low frequency landmass, it's now starting to change its colour. It's gone from being dark, from being black, to being a light grey. And as we give it more energy from source, it changes from a light grey to an even lighter grey, becoming whiter. And as we give it more energy, it changes from white to a bright white. Remember the synergetic effect, it's 12 squared. There's 12 of us in this meditation, so 12 times 12 is 144. It's like there's 144 of us pulling in energy from source through our crown chakras and projecting it into this landmass that's been pulled up from the surface whilst we're in orbit around the Earth. This landmass being in the centre of our group of people who are all holding each other's hands. And it's been irradiated by every one of us. 12 of us, and the synergetic effect of this 12, this 144. It's like each of us is equal to 12. And so this landmass now starts to become a silvery landmass as the energy increases. And we continue to feed energy into it, and the landmass changes from silver to a dark gold colour. And we keep feeding more energy to it, and the landmass goes to a light gold colour. And we start to see bits of the irradiation, the rotation of the energies, the pulsing of these energies. This is pure source entity energy being absorbed in this landmass. Not just by the landmass, but the landmass itself, the buildings that are there, and the population. And so they start to see that what they're doing is inappropriate, what they're doing is wrong. They're connected to a much bigger being, their higher selves are in existence all the time. So what they're fighting for is nonsense. So we give them more energies to help them awaken further. And the energy of this landmass and the people there becomes a golden colour that's glowing now. Not just a gold colour, but it's a radiating colour. And we give it more energy, and it starts to become the same energy as Source. This silvery, whitey, golden, radiating, pulsating, rotating energy. And in this condition, this landmass and the people there start to become awakened to the greater reality, to the energies that are what we really are. Individualized units of our higher selves who are individualized units of Source, who are individualized units of origin. And so they start to realize that actually they're fighting against themselves when they fight against other people. They're fighting against their neighbours, and their neighbours are themselves as well. Everything they're fighting against is themselves. So they're fighting against themselves. And in doing this recognition, this awareness, this realization process, they start to realize the futility of what's happening. They start to realize that it's just holding themselves back, that they're creating karma, that they're stopping their evolutionary progression. And so they all start to awaken to this process. And the need for the conflict becomes irrelevant, and they start to question the need for it. And so we continue to just channel this energy for a few more moments, assisting in its continued state so that they can stay aware long enough via our work to create their own higher frequencies instead, creating a perpetual condition. And so with this state established, we can allow this area of the continent that contains the Middle Eastern countries to move back down towards the earth. It's maintaining its white, silvery, glowing, radiating, pulsating, rotating energies that's within it. Maintaining this higher frequency condition. This will stay there, helping them to become self-aware and self-realized, letting them realize that they're just fighting against themselves. Each one of them is fighting against themselves rather than an enemy or a foe. And so now we can move ourselves back towards the west, or wherever we are, moving ourselves in the directions close to the continent where our room is in. And so now we're in orbit above the continent where our room is, irrespective of where we are in the world, whether it's in Hong Kong or Kauai or America or the UK or Slovenia or Mexico or Ireland. Everything is in the same place anyway. And so we move our whole group to wherever we are individually located. And within this portal we've created in the centre of us, we can picture this irradiating condition still working in the Middle East, even though we're back over our own continent. And now we've moved back to where we are, we can cut off the energies flowing through us. So we stop the energies flowing through our crown chakra and flowing out through our heart chakra, because the residual energies that are in the Middle Eastern countries will stay there for quite some time. And so now our room descends, so that we're moving out of orbit and we start to see the continent that we originated from. Then we move down into the country that we originated from. And we continue to move down so that we're in the city associated with the country that we originated from. And we move down so that we start to see the suburb of the city that we originated from. And we move down and we start to see the house where our room originated from. And then our room moves into our house and becomes part of the house. So when we're now back into our individualized locations around the world. We can now think about breaking the circle up. And so visualize or use your mentally spoken words. Let everybody now let go of my left hand with their right hand, or my right hand with their left hand, and the other left hands or right hands that they're holding with their left hand or right hand. And so all you see now is yourself sitting to my left hand side or my right hand side. You no longer see the rest of the individuals in the room. It's just you and me. And so you get up from your chair and walk over to the door. You open the door, walk through to the corridor, the white corridor, and close the door behind you. And then you walk up the corridor to the far end, which doesn't have a door or any walls, or any windows in the walls, sorry. And when you get to the other end of the room, you start to come back into your own room where you are now, where your seat is, where your computer is. So slowly come back into the room and open your eyes, and if you have some water there or a drink, take some to rehydrate, and slowly open your eyes. And know that you've done a fantastic piece of work by raising the frequencies of those countries associated with the Middle East, those ISIS countries, helping them to increase their frequencies so that they start to realise that they're just fighting themselves. They're not fighting an enemy, they're just fighting themselves, and that they're creating karma, and that they are part of something much bigger, and therefore they'll become self-realised. So thank you very much for taking part in that particular meditation, and thank you for help. And Johnson said, beautiful. You felt Muhammad come in and help. I've never felt this energy before. Fantastic. Thank you for noticing that, John. That's a very good, very excellent piece of observation. Thank you. Thank you. And Chris has just said, good, excellent. Let's keep an eye on the news. And Adrian said, thank you as well. And Matras is just typing. Well, and Matras is saying, it's great, thanks. Others saying, thank you. Marita saying, extremely peaceful, thank you. And thank you, all of you, for taking part in this. And season's greetings to you all, by the way. Have a great holiday. Enjoy the physical as well, of course. Nobody said we couldn't enjoy being in the physical while we're here, as long as we don't become of the physical. A break. And the next Satsanga will be the 17th of January 2015. So season greetings to you all. Merry Christmas to you all. Happy New Year to you all. And thank you all very much for participating. Thank you for this year and last year, and of course 2012 as well. I'm looking forward to 2015. And don't forget, if you have any questions you want to present beforehand, feel free to send them in, and I'll let you know what the agenda is for the next meeting. Within the next half hour, I guess. Thank you, everybody, and I shall dial you off and send you this recording. Thank you all, and Namaste.
Did you see the aliens in Crete?